The Sword and the Shield, The Elder Race, Part 3.
You might have jumped the gun in terms of those lizard men, Androm.
Androm of Winchester House sat with perfect posture. His hand lay admiringly on the lovely circular oaken table that traversed the boardroom of the supercarrier Leviathan, the largest and most deadly ship in the human fleet, and most likely the entire galaxy. It would serve as humanity's administrative and political capital until Earth could be tamed once again. She had grown wild while they had been away, and they had been away for far too long. It seems their caretakers had just up and left, leaving the leaders and essential personnel of mankind to rot in their tombs. A board meeting was in session with all house heads present, each with a place of equal value around the gargantuan oak table. Of course, outside this room, each member of the board, 156 in total, was in possession of vastly different political, social, and economic status. Well, perhaps not economically. They were all dirt poor. A stagnant economy and zero industry for almost 1,000,000 years would do that to you.
Yes.
Echoed Ji-Len of She House.
You have made any kind of a peaceful resolution with our respective client races impossible.
Androm sighed, his pale blue eyes flicking to catch those of Ji-Len. He liked Ji-Len most times, mainly because she kept to herself and never really attempted to meddle in the affairs of other houses. Androm couldn't stand it when others interfered with his business. It made him very angry.
That's assuming that your client race has survived the modified gene therapy and evolutionary acceleration. It can put a lot of species of a more frail design under quite a bit of stress. That being said, the Karok species, your lizard men, were my client race. Their extermination was perfectly within my rights and that of my house, as per the charter. What my house undertook was merely the destruction of faulty property that would only serve to be a detriment to the human race. We did not undertake this decision lightly. Of course, first contact with them was regrettable. It was quite disconcerting to awake from stasis to find invaders at our doorstep, and I, as well as the members of my house, took what steps we deemed necessary for the protection of Terra against an unknown threat.
Ji-Len's eyes narrowed.
You exterminated an entire race. Whilst you may have the charter on your side, I still believe your actions were not motivated by the desire to protect humanity, but merely to harm the interests of the other members of the board. Your actions resulted in the destruction of Relay 714H. We will be unable to reach the rest of our client races until another can be built. Our projections suggest that it could be up to a decade. You have prevented us from attempting to assume our rightful place as masters over our respective clients.
Androm smiled a smile that never really reached his eyes. They remained cold and hard as ice.
Your allegations are wild and unfounded, Ji-Len. After first contact, Winchester House embarked on a comprehensive research project on the advancement of the Karok. They were the dominant military power in the Orion Spur, and were very proud of that fact. Their entire culture was geared towards war and conquest, holding things like honor, discipline, and sacrifice most dear. They had slaves. They would never bow down to us, and would most likely attempt to organize the rest of the client races within the vicinity to rebel. Their destruction was inevitable. It was only a question of when.
Ji-Len opened her mouth to retort, as angry jeers flooded the room from others in her position, but she was overridden by a calmer, older voice. Dmitri of Kurchenko House took to the floor, attempting to placate everyone with a voice made from gravel and broken glass.
Perhaps the destruction of Relay 714H is a blessing in disguise. Our economy is in shambles. Our infrastructure is next to non-existent. We have no industry of any kind. As it is, we are barely able to feed ourselves. We do not have the resources to do what House Winchester did on a scale this large. Of course, we may be able to bluff our way back to supremacy, but I do not doubt that there will be conflict. That conflict will reveal our weaknesses to the rest of the client races. Despite our technological superiority, their numbers will win the day when push comes to shove. If we are to take our rightful place, we must not only appear to be in a position of superiority, but also actually be in one. As such, I would like to enact Protocol 223. For those of you unaware, this protocol dictates that the houses pool all resources at the disposal of humanity transcendent for the next 4 decades. We will establish artificial reproduction centers to replenish our numbers and colonize Karuk space. With hormone therapies, we can have a huge workforce fully grown within a decade. Everything must be nationalized until it has some semblance of stability. At this point in time, the board will have full control over every facet of human life. These measures may seem draconian, inhumane even, but I must stress that these measures are also temporary. We will return the human rights of those affected within 40 years. We must rebuild the civilization we lost during the calamity if we are to have any hope of subjugating the species in the Orion Spur, much less surviving the other elders. These are facts. When we step through the new relay in 40 years' time, we will do so in a position of power and authority, with each member of every house in full possession of their human rights.
Vote for Protocol 223. 137 I, 19 Ni.
We are facing an extinction-level event. These humans have crushed one of the most destructive and domineering civilizations that has ever existed within our realm of knowledge.
RQ2, Patriarch of the Andoran peoples, began. Andoran space had long neighbored that of the Karok, and had been eyeing the scaled men with anxiety for quite some time. Who knows when they'd come storming across the divide? The only thing that had aided them in that respect was the Andoran relay, which was the only way that the Karok could interact with other members of the Orion Spur. The Karok had carved themselves a large chunk of space through fire and conquest, but these violent urges were held in check by the simple threat that if they continued, the Andorans would destroy the relay, thus cutting the Karok off from any interspecies trade, something that the Karok economy relied heavily upon to function. For over 2 centuries, the Karok had been used as frontline units in peacekeeping actions enacted by the Council, and now they were gone. Obliterated. The last of their race scattered throughout Andoran space, telling horror stories and running scared. Humankind was coming, they whispered, and they were worse than Tenari pirates.
Indeed,
Said Dreglas through his face mask. The Borst could only breathe air that had a very high level of methane, meaning that many habitable worlds were rendered uninhabitable for them.
I have reviewed what information we have on them. I do not believe that a military action is the desirable course to take. It would mean the deaths of trillions. Perhaps there is some avenue of diplomacy.
No.
Replied the furred giant known as Kilnar, representative of the Confederation of Pyr.
This one believes that genocide is the objective of the human race. If they are truly the elder race, then perhaps they believe that this one and his ilk have supplanted them. They may have come to take back what was there. This one and his ilk believe that we must fight for survival.
In any case,
Akutu reasoned.
unless they are in possession of any technology that is unknown to us, they will not be able to reach us for quite some time. The Conti warriors that the fleeing Karok left behind destroyed the Andoran relay, rather than let the humans through. We must use this time to prepare. What do you suggest?
Asked Dreglas, his voice crackling through the breathing apparatus.
I have been in contact with our Board of Admirals, and they have proposed that we create a massive militarized zone along the borders of the space traversable by relay.
That would mean that this one and his ilk would be committing a vast amount of military resources to the defense of Andoran space. Do not forget the Tenari raiders that pepper this one's home with slave raids.
Chilnar warned.
Of course, my friend, but look at the bigger picture. In defending Endora, you defend yourself. If these humans are as capable as we believe, then the only hope we have of stopping them is with the combined might of every council and member race. I agree, but I believe diplomatic means must be explored before any hostile action is taken.
Said Dreglas.
We will commit to building this zone, but we will not fire a shot until peaceful means have been attempted. This one must put this proposal before the Congress. We will reconvene shortly.
Arkutu floated on his zero-gravity couch, moaning softly to himself as the two masseuses rubbed his back with practiced hands. The stress of being a patriarch for his people really got his back tied up in knots, especially since the appearance of these humans. He still didn't quite believe the stories. Stronger and faster than Conti warriors, more ruthless and bloodthirsty than the Tanari. It was like someone took all the worst and best parts of every civilization in the Orion's Spur and jammed them all together to make one super being. He stepped from the couch once the massage was done and returned to his desk, his blue skin deliciously supple after their treatment, his black eyes free of wrinkles and worry. For the moment, he sipped at the slightly narcotic tea as he read through report after report of panic and mayhem, as the whole damn galaxy reacted to the news of the imminent human invasion. They were the modern-day version of the scary stories young Andorans would tell each other around the sleeping well at camps. Except this story had the ability to ruin economies. Banks were crying out for financial aid as investors and customers alike withdrew their funds and ran. Businesses were packing up shop and leaving Andoran space, hoping to set up shop in some unknown corner of space that humanity might just pass by. Humanity has awoken. Bow down before the masters. Who were they? The guys in R&D were saying that they were the creators of every race within this spur. Why would they attempt to destroy the very thing that they spent 1,000,000 years building from the ground up?
Sir?
Arkutus' assistant marched in bearing a tablet that was not connected to any outside network. That was how hacking was prevented, supposedly.
Yes, thank you.
Arkutu read through the proposal and smiled a wicked little smile, made from jagged teeth in victory. The humans might have better weapons and greater strength, but his people now had the greatest military force ever assembled in history to use as a shield. Perhaps the people of the council may survive after all.